um, reintroduce myself. My name is Virginia Jimenez. I'm a transformational coach and the facilitator of this class, Rewrite Your Relationship Story for 2018. And the reason I started this is because I had my own stories that I needed to get over, and I won't even go into the length of. I'll tell you, 9 years ago, basically. And it was a journey of healing and of taking actions and of being courageous and taking chances, what felt like chances, right? And really what I found is that this understanding that relationships are a key to fulfillment in life. It's not just about really romantic relationships. All today, that's major, our main focus, right, is to rewrite our relationship story as it pertains to wanting to possibly change our relationship status for 2018. And I realize that there's some key things that we're not always taught in school. We're taught, a lot of technical stuff, math, science, history, things that are important. And yet there are some things that are like, you're not sure if you'll ever reuse them again, but they're good practice of discipline, if anything. Yet there's things that we don't learn that are extremely useful. I mean, such as balancing your checkbook. I don't know if they teach that now, but when I was in school, it wasn't taught. And other things like actually having relationships, the importance of connecting with people, the importance of networking, the importance of building relationships, the importance of knowing yourself, and so touch on some of those things today as we create our relationship story. So I'm going to go into already going into the slide presentation because I definitely want to honor time. And I want you to know that this was created initially with like way too much information. I had to condense it because the truth is there's just so much information out there that you could use to have more fulfilling relationships in your life. So we are going to get started. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, share my presentation with you guys. Today, what we're going to be doing together for the next hour to possibly an hour and a half, and I did put an hour and a half just because, again, it's a lot of information. And aside from that being the truth, this may be an opportunity for people to ask questions, and it could take a little bit longer. But I think an hour will be the tops for this presentation today. This presentation was actually inspired by a lunch and learn that I provided at the Center for Social Change last week. And I actually shifted it a bit because I realized it's way too much information. So my name again is Virginia Jimenez, and I'm a transformational coach on a mission to help people create more fulfilling and extraordinary lives in their businesses, how they manage themselves, how they manage their team, and specifically also just helping people build trust, connectedness, and to grow, right? And to grow and perform at their very best. First things first, when in this presentation today, before we even go further into doing anything, there is something that I think is very important. It's some housekeeping rules that I have when I create events or shared or safe spaces. And I know this is an online experience, but if you can agree to these things while you participate in this, it'll be great use of your time, right? If you can agree to openness, just trying on the information, right? Some of this information you could use, and others, some of the things you might not use. So just be open to what you're hearing and seeing if it fits in your situation. Right? Everybody's situation is a little bit different. And it's kind of like when you read a book, sometimes you read a book and there's something that resonated with you, a piece of that book that resonated with you. And then years later, you reread the book and something else stood out for you that wasn't the same. And it's because at that point, possibly there were some things that, that were different and it made sense. It resonated with you. So for right now, you might hear things that resonate at some that might not, and they might be useful later on in the future. So just be open to hearing it, even if you don't feel like it pertains to you. And use what works, right? And also take responsibility for where you are right now. And I mean that in the present sense and in the past sense, right? Where you are now based on what's taken place, taking responsibility for the choices that has led you to where you are, or the inability to make choices that has led you to where you are, whatever that is, right? and taking responsibility for this time right now. This is your time. You're making a choice to be here with you, and I honor that. And I want to thank you for taking the time to do just that, and to slow things down, to learn a bit more on how to rewrite your relationship story for 2018. The last thing that I ask from you is just to listen, to try to just listen. And it's almost repetitive to what I was just saying, like openness, use what works, listening to see what fits for you, and just not allowing the monkey brain to like take over and be like, no, this is not the right thing. Just sit with it, analyze it if you want, and then see if it works for you, right? And also listening so that you really do get something out of it, not just being here and then being distracted with other things. So at this time, I suggest that you can silence your phones, or eliminate distractions. If you're in a place that you have distractions, try to stay focused, or see if you can change your environment a bit. Who am I? My name is Virginia Jimenez, as I mentioned before, and a little bit about me, why this is even important, because I think it's important that you know why it is. Well, let's just start with, at this point, I have 2 kids, and I'm on a mission to really help other people, in inspiring them to live more extraordinary lives, and really seeing that they have what it takes to make choices that help them and serve them, and not only serve them, but that serves what they are on here, what they believe they're here to do, right? We create the purpose based on whatever occurs in our lives, and live in fear instead of in a space of. So my goal is to help people see the possibilities, and that's what it is today. My first coaching experience started in 1997. I was 15 years old. 2007, I graduated from FIU with a bachelor's degree in business administration and finance. And that was interesting because I thought that, getting my degree was going to lead to happiness, right? All that work and anxiety attacks I had just led to just a piece of paper. That's how I felt at that time, right? And so it really did take some work for me to see that, wow, that was actually a great accomplishment. So graduation, and then I went to Landmark Forum because I was on that search to understanding why I wasn't so happy with my graduation. So that took place in 2008, and then I had, another child at that point. In 2009, wow, things changed. I, separated from my partner at that time, the father of my children, and it was based on infidelity. And, that was then in 2009. And it was based on infidelity with somebody that I knew. So that was a really, really big, point of loss. It was probably one of the most dramatic things that had occurred in my adult life and my young adult life, because I was in my 20s. And, that just led to where things are right now, basically. That was just the beginning of uncovering things. I was only existing before that. At least it felt like, I was only existing, and I started to take steps to really live. And after that, I decided, I was working a corporate job that I didn't like, and I ended up leaving to another corporate job, which was, again, chasing happiness through these things outside of myself. And that same point, I left that job, right, to another corporate job. And I also left that relationship because I realized I was not going to be able to salvage it. I needed the support, and I did look for support. I actually went to psychologists and therapists, and I was not able to find what I needed, which is why I am right now, because I want to share what has taken place and what I've learned. 2011, started taking chances and discovering myself, self-love journey. Oh yeah, every year after that, I kind of dubbed each year something to help me stay focused: discovery, transformation. There was a year of saying yes to things and just making a list of what I loved and what I didn't, what I've always wanted to do that I never had the chance to do. And boom, it was some action. It was movement, right? 2011 just felt like more movement. And 2012, definitely even more movement, as I attended Tony Robbins UPW event. That was my first time doing it, and wow, that was electrifying, because after that, I think things just really took another leap, into a direction that I wasn't expecting. I got clear of what I really wanted in my career and made changes within the organization I was at. I knew I wanted to connect with people and serve people. I was already doing that. I already liked supporting people in their missions and their dreams, if I believed in it at least. And I really found that, I didn't want to leave that job. I wanted to have that sense of security. So I was creating what I could within that. And I switched position to be in a position to face clients and help small businesses. But then I got burned out. Oh my goodness. I got really, really burned out. I decided to get a certification in communication, coaching, and training via the Science of People in 2014. And I said, you know what? Once I'm done with this, I'm going to leave my corporate job and start this dream of really the mission of helping people create more extraordinary lives and live, take actions and see the things that they're just unconscious of, that are not serving their goal. So officially started my coaching practice, left my corporate job, got closer to understanding my hold up on relationships, got clear on my purpose. Oh yeah, that was really like a huge year for me. And I ended up hiring a coach because I definitely needed that support. And we were working together for a good year and a half. It was amazing. And 2016, I started a healthy relationship with somebody. I mean, of course, before that I had been, exploring relationships, but I really officially started a new relationship after all that time into 2016. And that was last year. And 2017, I'm continuing to create my coaching practice and creating trainings for small business owners that have small teams that really want to help them unite and build trust with one another. To have a signature leadership workshop that is around helping the skills um, that inspire unity, trust, and connectedness, and also the leadership skills as well. So to help people live more life. So that's just a bit about me. I'm not going to go any further about me, but you can tell why it's really important. And I started out being very cynical about relationships because of my past experience in relationships. And I realized over time that that's the stuff that I was thinking is just not true. And I realized there's a lot of people out there that are probably thinking the same thing. We have all these beliefs about what relationships are about, but why would you want to be here? Really, I think the reason you'd want to be here is because, well, there's a desire to connect with other people. Even if we have had bad luck in relationships, there's this need for it. I mean, we're human. We actually thrive on that. And most humans are going to feel this desire to do that, the majority of them. You might be here because you're single and having a hard time in relationships, or you're curious about what could embolden your relationship style. What could help you in having better relationships. Maybe you're not having such a hard time, but you want to get better at the relationships that you have. You might be here because you want to learn to trust others and your ability to make better choices in relationships, right? You might be here because you want to learn how to trust others. I think that's a huge factor. Trust is a major aspect of relationships, and not only intimate relationships, but even in business, right? When you're connecting with potential business clients or connecting with people that you'd like to partner up with, trust is the main thing. It's a huge factor of it. You might also be here because you're ready just to create a new possibility in relationships, and this just might be the best place for you. So I'm glad you're here with me. Thank you again. I honor you taking the time to be here with me today. Remember, again, the reason this is so inspired is because I myself discovered that the quality of our relationship leads to happier and more fulfilling lives. And this particular quote was inspired by Robert Waldinger, who is director of a Harvard study of adult development. And Harvard basically has this very old study of about 30 men from the New England area that they wanted to basically see what caused people to live more happier and fulfilled lives. And they basically found that relationships were the key to that. The people that they were following over these last 75 to 80 years, the ones that were happy and fulfilled, the results showed that it was a result of their close relationships. They found that those that had close relationships lived longer, they felt happier, and and had more satisfaction, right? They were obviously more fulfilled. They also found that it was not just close relationships, period, but quality of relationships instead of quantity. Many times they were mentioning that in your 20s, you might look for quantity, right? Like, how many likes do I have? How many followers do I have? And I mean, you might be in your 30s and also still asking that question. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm just saying that, the quality versus the quantity is really what has proven in their study to be what helps people have more fulfilling lives. So you can know 100 people, but if you don't even connect with them on a deep level, exchanges with them, then there's a possibility that you might not be as fulfilled, right? I'm not saying you're not going to be fulfilled. It depends on you. So yes, the quality of our relationships. So what makes up relationships? What exactly makes up relationships? Well, relationships are made up of what I like to call this relationship house, which was inspired by Dr. John Gottman. If you haven't gone to see Dr. John Gottman's website, you should check it out. I mean, he does work with married couples. Very good information. Very good. I actually have participated in one of his level 1 relationship therapy courses, so I did get to learn a lot about things. And he does have something called a sound relationship house, which is not exactly like this house. This is my interpretation of what's needed in relationship. Trust is definitely a huge factor in it. It's not just what's inside of this house, right? This is on the outside. We have it in the roof. We have it in the pillars. We also have communication and connectedness and commitment. And those are important because obviously communication is a huge aspect of it. If you're not able to communicate certain things, your needs, or even ask and have an understanding of what your communication style is, it could impact relationships, right? The ability to have difficult conversations. Oh my goodness, it's a huge factor in this. And I'll tell you, because I mean, even Dr. John Gottman, in his years of studies, he's done more than 30 years of studying marriages. He's found that the truth is we don't the idea of having resolution isn't really a solid one, because it's not a matter of resolving problems at times. It's a matter of managing conflict, right? Learning how to manage them. And we need communication in order to learn how to manage them. So that's important. And connectedness would be important as well, right? Learning or being open to connecting with the other person and not being afraid of being emotionally available. Just, because that is important. It's important to know that somebody is there for you emotionally and that you could be there for somebody else emotionally as well. And then commitment, because relationships aren't always, they're not always just like one streamline, successful track, right? You might have instances where there's um life happens, right? Life circumstances that impact relationships. And if you are committed to finding solutions together, you're committed to your goal together as a couple, or as as a partner, as a partnership, right? As a family, as a team, then you have a better time if both have this commitment to creating this, right? Once you already identify what it is that it is you're creating. So that's the outside part. And the inside is all the thoughts, house rules, basically. And when I say by house rules, it's boundaries, it's boundaries that we create, rules that we create for ourselves in our relationships. And don't tell me that you don't create rules. We do. There's things that you might think of, like, oh, I won't put up with this, or oh, I won't put up with that, or oh, okay, I don't like that, but I'll just let it slide. That's a rule that you've created for yourself, basically, right? So inside the house is our thoughts, the decisions that we make, the actions, beliefs, values, right? The values that we hold true to ourselves and in our relationships, your behavior and your blueprint show up and how you act, and then your level of awareness of self. So let me just check in to see if anybody is online right now. Hey. All right. Nobody's on right now. No worries. Awesome. All right. So we're going to get started with number one. So we're going to go through 8 different keys to consider when you are going to rewrite your relationship story. One is being aware of your limiting thoughts. And it's a big one because, I mean, if you're on social media, you'll definitely see all sorts of memes and quotes and all sorts of different things that we believe are truths, right? We think they're true. And we start acting based on those things, right? And sometimes they're not true, but they sound good and they work in context based on whatever we're going through at the moment. And some of those things that you may see online or through friends that you hear is things like this: love hurts, right? Love is hard. It's supposed to be painful. Some people really believe that, right? They think it's supposed to be painful. So, and the hard ones are the ones to go after, right? Oh yeah, let's go for the one that's a hard one to go after, because that must be exciting, right? That must fulfill the need for uncertainty or variety, right? How about the saying, love is doing all it takes to please the other person no matter what? right? No matter what, right? Like even if you have to sacrifice yourself, relationships are painful. Men are animals, women are crazy, right? These are things that these are just examples of things and phrases that you may see online and quotes that you may see. And basically, some of these things like we don't really pay attention to, but really we are like little scientists, right? We're picking up information all the time and putting it in filing cabinets and in our minds, and we go back to it every once in a while whenever we're trying to understand or rationalize certain things that are happening in our lives, life circumstances that change. And at times we might pick one of these up and it says it's comforting to understand, oh, it's because of this. But sometimes those things are not always true. So we're going to work on understanding where these limiting beliefs come from. As I mentioned, sometimes they come out from outside, right? And these are these beliefs, not just limiting beliefs, any belief. We carry them with us. They're inside of our house. We adorn our house with it. Right? Imagine when you go into, you find a neighborhood that's like, all the houses look exactly the same, but if you go inside each house, you can tell it's a whole different world in there. The structure in the inside is the same. What people put inside is different, and it makes it feel different. Your experience is different there. You feel different. Be different as well. Same thing with this. We're carrying these beliefs in our minds, in our home, in our relationship home, and we carry it around with us. And sometimes these are beliefs that enlighten us, and other times they're things that just weigh us down. So where do these beliefs come from? Future visions, things that we may be anticipating that we don't even know is true. By the way, when is the future? The future doesn't even exist. All we have is right here, right now, at this very moment. And many times we are just fabricating our future in our minds. Now, not saying it's not, I'm a visionary. I like to see ahead and see, I have a vision of what I want to create for myself. But when we start looking at it from the spectrum of relationships, right, and just anticipating what we may think somebody else might be doing or not doing or whatnot, it could be healthy, but at the same time, it's something to just consider. So our future visions can impact our beliefs. Our events that take place in our life can impact beliefs. Your past results can impact beliefs, right? Things that have happened in your past and the results that you got. If this happened then this, this may happen again if I do this, right? If we use the if then statement, basically based on our past results, we end up operating based on old belief systems. Our environment, obviously, where we live, things things that are going on in our world, in the news, those things impact our beliefs, obviously. And then knowledge, just things that we learn in school, things we learn from other people, things we learn from publications and from the internet, things that we're constantly reading on the internet and social media sites, all those things. And in life, there's I think many times when we grow up, we have one life circumstance, right? We're children. Things happen as a child, and let's say you fell and scraped your knee, and it was at a park, and it was because you were riding bike really, really fast. And so the life circumstance was that basically you fell off your bike, and our minds start to create a blueprint based on that, right? We decide, well, you know what, if I go fast on a bike, that could potentially happen. So maybe I shouldn't ride fast. Or you might decide, you know what, bikes are dangerous. I'm not going to get on a bike at all, and so then you don't do it. And that's that. And so your life circumstance, whatever occurs, you start creating a blueprint around that. You start creating patterns and decisions based on those things that occurred. Sometimes life does happen and our blueprint doesn't change. So we have all these operations that we're working on from our past, right? From past results, from knowledge that we required, from things that are happening in our environment. And we might not change our blueprint, and we might not be able to change the life circumstance. And so what happens is we end up feeling uh frustrated because, wow, why isn't my life circumstance, why am I not able to live in this type of situation? And sometimes it's because we have to shift our perspective around it, right? If we can't change the life circumstance, then maybe we should change our perspective around it, which is really the blueprint, how we're operating ourselves. And so it's something to consider, right? Sometimes life changes, and you might have to change this blueprint. And sometimes life changes and you don't want to change the blueprint, and you might have to find a way to change the other side of the equation, the life circumstance. So here's the example, like life circumstance: you've been deceived, you were lied to, you fell off a bike, If we don't change, if we can't change the life circumstance around it, then sometimes suffering can come in, right? Because of the beliefs of what that means, what that life circumstance means. But how will your life circumstance change with the same blueprint, right? How will you change your life circumstance? So let's say right now for yourself, you may be single, operating based on the same blueprint you've been operating on for the last 2 years, 3 years, or even at, things that you learned as a child. How close will you get to creating a new possibility in changing your life circumstance? In order for the life circumstance to change, we kind of have to shift the blueprint around. We have to analyze to see what makes sense. Is this map the one that works for me still? Right? We're constantly evolving. Things are changing, and there's some things that are constant, but some that are not. And sometimes we don't take those things in consideration. It's hard for us to connect the dots in the future as well. So we operate easily from the past at times, or from whatever we're learning in the moment. But consider that if you want your life circumstance to change, and if that's the case with your being single, then perhaps we need to evaluate the blueprint, because the blueprint you're operating on may just be keeping you single. This is a huge thing. Don't believe everything you think. I saw this on a bumper sticker on a car, and I thought, wow, that's weird. This was several years, maybe 5 years ago. And really, with time, I realized it's kind of true. Sometimes we think things that aren't serving us and that aren't true, and we hold on to them. And that's what we're going to work on today. At the end of going through these 8 keys, we're going to rewrite your relationship story with the idea that obviously we can't believe everything that we think. To understand what you really want. Man, let me tell you, this is a big one, because how many of you just know that you just want a relationship, but then you're like, okay, I just want a relationship. I just want to be with somebody. I just don't want to feel lonely, right? I just want to feel this. I just want to feel complete, or whatever it is that you say to yourself about relationships. But what do you really want? If you were to imagine yourself in a relationship, what do you want the outcome to be from that? What would you give in that relationship? What would you want to get from the relationship? How would it serve you, and how would you like to serve that other person potentially? If you can imagine it years from now, what does that relationship look like? What do you really want? Let's design it. Let's just like see what's possible, not just, yeah, I just don't want to be alone. I just want to find somebody. And I'm not saying that's not a good enough reason, but at the same time, you have a better chance of finding the type of person that you want, or the relationship that you want, when you know exactly what you want. And what I mean by that is knowing what you want from the other person. So let's consider these 2 steps to finding out what you really want. And I think it's important to have one master list. Like, just take your time one day and start, maybe get a little journal from the dollar store, wherever it is, right? You get a little journal and start writing down the things that that you feel like you would want in a relationship, or from the person that you're in a relationship with. um, and jot them down, and eventually go to step 2, which is to kind of break it down into these 3 different categories. So you have your must-haves and your wants, and then at the end you might have your deal breakers, which you can just create later on. From this master list, just create these 2 things: the must-haves and the wants, right? And your must-haves, here's an example. Must-haves may definitely have to have respect, right? That the other person's respectful to you, and you define what respect means. Be clear about what that means. Respect means this to me, right? Don't do this, do that. Kind, that they're obviously kind to you. So those things I think are mandatory. Maybe, and they may not be for you, but these are just examples. That they're family oriented, that they're spiritual, that they're open to receive suggestions, that they're open to conversations. Those might be must haves, right? That they have goals, that they're ambitious, that they have their own business, that they're financially secure. These might be things that you consider the must haves. It's not always the case for everybody. So take your time after the class to go ahead and make your list, your master list, and divide it with your must haves and your wants. And examples of some wants might be, hey, they're into poetry because I'm into poetry. It'd be cool if they were. It's not a mandatory though, right? It's not a deal breaker if they're not. If they're not into poetry. Or they might play sports because you like to play sports and they're active. Or they might play, music. They might be a musician, or they might like to travel. That might not be a must-have. That might be hey, it'd be nice if they like traveling. That'd be really cool. And that's a want. They might be multitaskers. I actually put that on the list because that's sometimes, something people would like, and it's not a must-have, but it's a want. And then some major deal breakers would be, here's examples of, has kids but doesn't take care of them. That might be a deal breaker for some people, or they have kids, period. It's a deal breaker. They don't want any kids at all. They might not have a spiritual practice. That might be a deal breaker. Another one that might be a deal breaker is that they are, not social, or that they are just not ambitious, or perhaps they are abusive in some way, right? They speak to you in a way that you don't like. That might be a deal breaker too. So this is really important. Number 2, really understanding what you want, getting clear about that. And the more time you take really creating your master list and dividing it into these must-haves and wants, the better it is, because then you know what you're looking for. It's kind of like throwing a dart out there with no target. And we don't want that. What happens when you end up doing that? We waste a lot of time aimlessly out there, frustrated because we know we want something, and yet we can't even define what that looks like. This is like a major, major part. No one but you can decide what is best for you. That is your power. It really is power to understand what you want. And the more that we own that power of discerning our wants and desires, the better. Because we can't just to our friends to ask us, well, what do you think I should do? And it's not that you shouldn't ask for their advice, but you really should know what you want. You should know. And I hate saying the word should, but I will say that it's important. I think, and it's a major suggestion for you to consider, that understanding what you want in your new relationship as you rewrite your story for 2018 is super important. And this is number 3. And this is actually really, really important, because this is part of that step of understanding your wants. It really gets a little bit clearer when you are able to commit to yourself and others, it's easy to do that once you understand certain things about yourself, like your values and what you will commit to, what you'll commit to for other people. Remember, commitment is that foundational part of our relationship house, right? So step 1 here would be, what are your values? Here's some examples of it. Honesty, stability, right? You might be seeking, that sense of stability when you have a partnership. Those same shared values, right? You might be seeking friendship, growth, somebody to grow with in different aspects, and define what that is. What does growth mean to you exactly? So that you understand that aspect and see where you see it in other people when you're out there looking for your, new relationship. What else? Relaxation might be a value. Adventure, spirituality, change. You might actually like flavor of change. You might want, you might value that, and you might want somebody that also values that as well. Agreements with yourself. And this is super important, because I think many times that we follow rules, right? You might follow the rules at your work. You might follow your rules in your, in your community, social rules that we follow and things like that. But what are the rules for yourself based on what your beliefs and what you stand for? What agreements do you have with yourself? For example, let's say you do value spirituality. It's a huge deal for you. You might have a routine where you honor that part of yourself every single morning, no matter what. And that's an agreement you have with yourself. You might be somebody that goes to service on Sundays, because that's an agreement you have with yourself, and honoring that because you value that so much. You might also value friendships and decide, you know what, I think it's important for me to have this agreement with myself that I connect with my friends at least once a month or twice a month, even if it's just by text message. And you might create these rules for yourself. This is important because this honors your value, what you hold true and important to you. And this is actually a part of self-love, and really honoring yourself and honoring your needs, your desires, and what is important. With yourself are super important. And I want you to consider, how close do your agreements preserve your values? Values really are. What agreements do you currently have in place to help you maintain those values and really stand firm with who you are, so you don't lose yourself? If that's ever been a fear of yours, right? In relationships, that might be a fear that some people have. I might lose myself. Well, what agreements do you need to have in order for you to preserve your values, to preserve whatever it is that you think you might lose? Agreements do you need to create? So if you don't have any agreements, what do you need to create right now in your life so that you do honor your values, honor your beliefs, honor what you need for yourself? In order for you to be there for others, you need to be true to what your needs are as well. Remember, when my cup runs over, I'm able to spill it over to you guys. And just like when we're on an airplane and they tell us to go ahead and put our mask on first before we put it on somebody else, it's because we do need to take that breath in. This is honoring that. This is honoring that space that says, you know what? I need to make sure that I'm whole so that I can be in a relationship. Step three is agreements you have with others. So, how close do your agreements with others preserve your values, right? What type of agreements would you have in order for you to preserve your own values? For example, you might be in, you might be the New Year's coming around. So, people might just be interested in getting back into shape and they might need to create an agreement with somebody else in order for them to pursue these goals, right? They might just need to have a conversation. Let's say if you have children, you might need to ask for help and you might have to create an agreement with somebody else in order for you to pursue those things for yourself. You also might need to create an agreement just to connect with somebody else, period. Right? For example, you might decide, hey, you know what? I might need to create an agreement where we're not able to see each other all the time, but I will commit to seeing this person on this particular day, and it's going to be our day for ourselves. And these are agreements you can make with anybody in your life, not just potential partners or people you're already in a relationship with. This is something you can create with your children, with your boss. I mean, what type of agreements do you need in order to preserve your values and the values that you may share with these other people? I didn't add that on there, but that's really important as well. And what new agreements do you need to create when you connect with a new partner or current partner? These are things to consider. So just take these notes as you go along and consider this for yourself in your new year of rewriting your relationship story. Remember, expectations can breed disappointment. And this is very true. And this is exactly why I wanted to talk about agreements, because many times we have expectations. We don't communicate our desires. We're not even sure what our desires really are. We haven't put pen to paper necessarily for it. And we don't create agreements around that. We just have expectations that come up. And it's very normal. It's not abnormal to have expectations. They do come up. I think it's important just to be aware when these things come up, because then at that point is when you can actually have a conversation. Hey, I realized I was expecting XYZ. And I think it's really important to me. I really think we should have a conversation around it, and let's see if we can work something out, because I really would like this to happen and I need this to happen. Can you work with me? Can we agree to something? And that's what this is about. Remember what I was saying earlier about the relationship house and Dr. John Gottman in his study about conflict resolution. Really, it is about conflict management. And this piece of information of being able to create agreements with yourself, being able to create agreements with others, is a key to really having that aspect of managing our relationships and managing our conversations with people. So that's number 3, is the life agreements. Now we're going to number 4, honoring your agreements. Ha ha ha. Yeah. So now we have agreements. So what? All right. We make rules for ourselves and we break our rules all the time, right? And this may be really true. You might actually say, I've created rules for myself in the past, and I've broken some of those rules, and I realized, oops, that was not what I wanted to do. And I realized it's because of certain things that I just didn't have in place. It's almost like I had to have an extra agreement for my agreement to actually work out. And I think one of those things is really creating boundaries. So we look here, we have our blueprints, right? And sometimes we're operating our blueprints based on these agreements that we don't even have, that don't exist. We have no boundaries around agreements that we create, that we didn't even have, actually. So now we're creating new agreements, right? So what boundaries do you need to have in order to make sure that those agreements, that you stay true to them? And your agreements to self, when have you said yes when you needed to say no? I mean, it's a big one. Who has not said yes to something and almost immediately felt like, oops, I think I should have said no on that one. I don't know how to retract that just yet, right? I mean, this is just an example. At times, we don't create the boundaries that are needed for us to honor our agreements, and sometimes all we just need to do is pause. That just might be a really good suggestion. A suggestion of just pausing and not saying anything, or maybe saying, I gotta think about it until later. Let's talk about it later. But boundaries, that's just an example of having a conversation and saying yes when you should be saying no. But creating boundaries when they need to be, where they need to be based on what you want to see happen. What boundaries do you have in place when you're meeting new people? What rules do you have for yourself in place? What are you doing to make sure you honor your values and your agreements to yourself? The word no, when do you need to say no? knowing, understanding what at one point do you possibly need to say no, and you might be saying yes to instead of saying no. Of needs, what boundaries should you communicate in words or non-verbally? And I said the non-verbally part because I think it's important to understand that your communication is not just what you're saying with words. Many times, I mean, we are constantly, like I was saying earlier, we're constantly picking up information and putting in like this imaginary filing cabinet in our minds. And we're doing that with people when we shake their hands, when we see them, when we see their gestures, we start analyzing certain things. And sometimes we're really just amateurs at it. We're not doing good at really picking up these informations. But I want you to consider how important that is, and just think of how it is that you're communicating your needs, your need for certain things. And if you're not communicating boundaries properly, with words or with actions, would you need to be taken in order to communicate certain boundaries? And why are you being, not communicating boundaries when they're needed? Remember that this and actually now that that came up, I didn't put a slide for that, but really the distinction of pleasing versus serving, or I should say serving versus pleasing, right? We say no, or basically you might be doing it because you want to please the other person. You don't want to disappoint them. So you say yes instead of saying no. But are you being of service? When you don't create these boundaries at times, are you being of service? And not only that, are you even showing that you're capable of making decisions for yourself if you don't create these boundaries? So this is not a matter of like, this is a bad thing to create boundaries. Consider that it is to honor your values, to honor your beliefs, and to satisfy having a fulfilling relationship, because it's not a one-way street where you're constantly giving and giving and just pleasing and saying yes to things that you should be saying no to. Understand that, yeah, there are times you could say yes. I'm not saying it's a bad word, but I think it's important to know why you're saying yes or you're saying no. Where is this coming from? Is it coming from a place of fear where you're fearing, hey, I just need to please this person? Or is it coming from a place of service? Am I really serving them and myself in this moment when I'm saying yes or no? So those are things to consider. Understanding the rules, practicing them is a form of discipline. All right. And that's a huge deal. So like, it's very easy to say, oh yeah, we need to create boundaries, that I need to say no more often. But really it is a matter of practicing these disciplines. And a suggestion, like I mentioned earlier, is perhaps get asked something that we just go ahead and say, hey, you know what? I need to think about it. Say no if saying no is really hard for you. Next, number 5, life love styles. Life and love styles. Basically, it's again, I told you guys this is a lot of information, but I'm trying to condense it all into these 8 steps and then rewriting the story. Communication and connection. How do you manage conflict conversations? Difficult conversations, as I say. This is really important. Do you even take the time to have these difficult conversations? I mean, it's crucial because conversation, you think other people that you're close to may not realize that there's something wrong, and there probably is something wrong that has to be talked about. I mean, and this is an example is just, I mean, again, we're reading information from people just from their nonverbals, and we start analyzing it and thinking, hey, there's something up, but there's no conversation around it. Perhaps we should ask, hey, is everything okay? And you know what? Just trust that they'll communicate yes or no to you. But other times it is about having difficult conversations. What is your communication style? Are you trying to be passive aggressive? Are you trying to come from a place of pleasing instead of thinking, well, this conversation may actually be of service? How much are you living in anticipation versus being present? That's another question I have when it comes to your life love style. How often are you basically, let's say in your past relationships, have you connected with somebody and were worried, preoccupied in the relationship, thinking about what could possibly go wrong, what could they be doing, or how in your relationship? And so instead of being present with what is, right, where you might just be having a great healthy relationship, actually living in the future. Again, the future doesn't even exist just yet. All it is right now. So how much are you living in anticipation versus being present? In what way do you like to receive love? Right? If you haven't heard of the 5 love languages, you should check that book out. Gary Chapman is the author, and he just talks about the 5 different ways people like to receive love. And they like to give love. And it's something to consider, understanding that part of yourself. And also, it's something to consider when you're meeting new people. In what ways do they like to receive love, right? So there's the through gifts, there's through acts of service, there's through words of affirmation, there's through did I say service already? I think I did. There's 5 different ways basically, right? And so it's keeping that in mind, like the 5 different love languages, and which ones are strong for you, which ones are the ones that you feel are the ways that you like to receive love, and then keeping that in mind as you meet other people. And what is your attachment style, and are you a or of your potential partner? If you haven't heard of adult attachment styles, consider it something that would be extremely useful for you to understand. And it just has to do with learning what influences our behavior in our interactions, just to meet some of our needs, like our needs of connection and love. And the understanding the influences, that what influences our actions in getting our needs met, right? So this is a matter of understanding how it is you operate when you're trying to get your needs met, this need of love and connection and security at times. And there are 3 main ones. I mean, some of the studies show the 4, but pretty much we have the secure attachment style, which is somebody that's just able to connect. They are able to give support and to be open to being supported, being comforted in certain times. So it's a two-way street of being open to emotional connection and emotional exchange, and allowing themselves and their partner to move freely. So despite the fact that there's an understanding of, hey, I'm here for you, I'm here for you, and I know that you're here for me. It's knowing that despite that it's not it's like a good form of dependence, right? Just knowing that somebody's got your back. That's really what it's about. And able to to feel free. You're still independent individuals that are just sharing in partnership, and knowing that you have somebody that has your back. So that's a secure attachment style. And we have the anxious attachment style that's pretty preoccupied in the relationship, is feeling like, something just might go wrong, and they're oversensitive about the information that they're collecting, the nonverbal cues. They're heightened, thinking, hey, something's going to go wrong. Or, and then many times, again, it comes back to some of the beliefs that we might have. We just might be validating it with constantly looking for information to validate the story of, hey, this men are animals or women are crazy. I'm just throwing an example out there, right? So anxious attachment style. Then we have the dismissive avoidant. There's, I was saying that there's 3 different ones. Pretty much, it's the secure, anxious, and the avoidant. But the avoidant, there's studies that show that it's been split into 2, and I think it makes a lot of sense actually, because one of them is a dismissive avoidant, just basically completely emotionally distant. They are the type of person that says, I don't need anybody. And the truth is that the majority of people do feel this need, this desire to connect with somebody else. And again, relationships are a space where you know that you can count on somebody. Once you have that quality relationship, it's a space of that secure feeling that, hey, I have somebody that's got my back. I could still live my life, but I have somebody that's got my back. I know that I do, because you've built that quality relationship. But dismissive is basically like they act like they don't need you, and they are emotionally detached. And then the other one is the fearful avoidant, which is kind of like a cross between the fearful, an avoidant, and an anxious person. Because there's somebody that basically they keep you at arm's length, but that they want you at the same time. So there's this tug of war that takes place. Understanding that is really important. I mean, we can go into a whole day of talking about that, but we won't. So just keep that in mind, and I'll be providing you guys some information so you can learn more about finding out what your attachment style is, and learning more about how you can decipher what other people's attachment styles are when you're meeting them, and how that impacts you, right? How that influences your behavior and your outcome in your relationships. The other thing is language. Like, what words are you using to express yourself? What words are you using to talk about relationships? Are you saying, hey, all relationships suck all the time? Imagine who do you become when you think these thoughts? Right? So being mindful of that, what you communicate to yourself, what language are you using when you're communicating to other people about relationships? Because for one of the next steps coming up. And like I mentioned earlier, are you being passive aggressive, or are you really expressing the way you feel? right? Are you finding ways to just be really honest? And I understand that times we don't really like to be completely honest. I mean, there's been studies that show that people are lied to about 200 times a day. And for one of three reasons, they're either protecting themselves, protecting the other person, or for both reasons. They're protecting both people, themselves and the other person. And sometimes it's not a matter of, wanting to really be a liar. It's a matter of just like, hey, I'm protecting somebody's feelings. At times it's that, right? So it happens. But are you being direct, are you really expressing your feelings? Or are you just being passive aggressive? And understand the rules is knowledge. Oh, that's the same quote. See. So number 6, we're gonna go into it because it's getting close to 1 p.m. already. Trusting is number 6. Super crucial. Like I mentioned in the relationship house, this is like something that's like covering the house. It's holding the house up, and it's important. Not only trusting, how do we trust others? Learning how to trust others again, because as children, it's almost like we're pure, innocent. We start learning that, hey, sometimes you can't completely trust people, and over time we start building these walls, and we start thinking that it's either we trust them or we don't trust them, right? So we're going to go into that right now, and trust and trustworthiness. And when we consider the word trust, we think of the question, well, who can I trust? When you go out there, you're meeting new people, you might think, is that somebody I can trust? And our minds work like that too. Subconsciously, we are seeing if we can trust somebody or not, because we want to protect ourselves. We don't want to get hurt, right? We don't want to put ourselves in dangerous situations either. So we are asking ourselves this question, and this leads to a yes or no. Many times it leads to yes or no. And so sometimes this could be limiting in itself as well, because is it enough to just ask the question, who can I trust? And honestly, I believe the answer is no. I think a better question would be, how trustworthy is this person that I'm connecting with? And when we think of trustworthiness, we can think of these 3 categories of assessing. You remember, we're like scientists, we're out there collecting data all the time, even if we know it or not. It's very unconscious at times, but we're assessing trustworthiness based on these 3 areas. How confident do they appear to be? How reliable are they? And how honest are they? And confidence, is something that we just really pick up even through the nonverbals, and that impacts us. If somebody is not showing their level of confidence, wow, I mean, if you don't know the person, very easily your mind will go to a space of, well, I gotta like learn a little bit more about them. I mean, think of a time where you went into an interview, somebody, and you ask questions and they just looked a certain way. They just didn't look confident. And it really throws people off, especially when you don't know the person. It's like, what's going on there? It causes people to think, well, I'm not sure if this person is really trustworthy. I think the better question is to ask, how's trustworthy, versus can I trust them or not? Not that asking can I trust them or not is not a good question, but let's become more of beginners level or intermediate level scientists, right? Going out there looking for the data and understanding, are people more trustworthy, versus just ending our research with a yes or no question, that's, can I trust them or not? And I think this will be important as you start connecting with people, and seeing what's possible in rewriting your relationship story, considering how trustworthy somebody is based on these 3 things, and testing these things out. How reliable is this person? You don't even have to I'm not saying create tests for people. Don't do that. People, they might just notice. What I'm saying is like actually taking notes about, let's say, if they honor their word, or if they overpromise and underdeliver, or vice versa. It'd be great if they, if it was the opposite of that, right? And how often they do that, and when they do that, so that okay, in this situation, I can trust this from this person, but I might not be able to trust XYZ from them, right? So this learning, at what point can you trust people and not, and seeing how close that ties into what your needs are for that relationship. Number 7, planting seeds. Super important that we know that, what, there's this belief that people might have, like, love only happens when you're not looking for it. If it's meant to be, it's just gonna happen. It's so miraculous. Let me tell you that no, it's awesome if that happens. I mean, I believe in miracles. I do. But I also believe that if you take the right actions, you have a better chance of getting it. And really, this is about creating the possibility of more of what you want, right? So if you're looking for a new relationship, don't get stuck on believing that thought that, hey, if it's meant to be, it's just going to happen. Love happens when you're not looking for it. That's real love. It's great when that happens, but put it out there. Love favors the bold. Let's create this new empowered belief around it. And here's some 4 suggestions for you to consider as you take action to go out there and meet new people and start rewriting your relationship story, right? Seek referrals. It works. I'm a firm believer of this. You know, I'm definitely somebody in business. I have a business background. I have practiced business myself, and not only do I practice this in business, but I also practice this in my personal life. I've practiced this, and it works. It really does work. All right, go out there. If you are serious, like you know what you want, you've already understood what it is that you want, what are your must-haves, what are your wants, what do you value, what is your, agreements that you have with yourself, what would be agreements that you would need to create with other people to honor this impact, and you really know, yes, I am ready to go full force. I want to meet new people. This is going to be my year. Let's make this happen. Go out there and just start talking to your friends and family members and letting them know, hey, listen, remember me, I'm single, I'm interested in, connecting with new people. You don't have to say I'm interested in a relationship unless you want to, but really, let's start from the ground. All right, it's all about just connecting with people. That is the first step. That's it. We're not trying to get married just yet. All right, just consider focusing on the first step: connection. You want to connect with people, period. And from there, you want to assess if this is somebody that you're interested in. Are they trustworthy? Right? Do you share values? Is this somebody you can communicate with? But first things first, connecting and finding people that can connect you with other people. And imagine, I mean, if your friend or a family member knows somebody and they're friends of this person, it's possibly even a better chance of it being at least a connection that works, right? Is it always the case? No, but that depends on you and whether you know what it is that you really want. And if you draw the line and say, hey, you know what? This is going to be a friendship only. I love that we connected. It was great. I need to move on. And you should too. So this is it's important. Seeking referrals, it works. It really does. Ask your friends and family. Seek in your community. What events are going on in your community that you resonate with you, where you can meet new people? Don't be afraid to just talk. Again, start from the ground. This is just a conversation. This is just a connection. It's just seeing if you could be friends. If you want, look at it that way. That's really what it is. Can you actually connect with this person? Are they trustworthy? Do you have shared values and beliefs? Do you have some things that you would share in meaning? Because that is what creates those fulfilling relationships. The number three would be old friends. Go to your old friends. Maybe they're single. Maybe they're interested in connecting, or they might know somebody that is. Hey, this is how it works. So go out there and start asking your old friends. And four, test different online sources. Yes, I know there's people that are like, ugh, online. No, I don't want to get on an online website. Hey, you know what? It's a numbers game. Somebody told me once that, right? I mean, this might be true or not true, but the truth is, I would say the truth is that the more you put it out there, the more likely you are of getting some sort of result from it. It's considered a form of connection. It's as simple as that. You're testing things out. Put some lines out there, see if there's some bites, and remember to honor your agreements with yourself and your agreements with yourself as far as time is concerned. Consider that it does take time to be on online sources. See if that fits with you. So I put that as last because of that, but it's not something you shouldn't consider. It's just something to be mindful of. It definitely could be, and it does, require some energy. So redesign. Let's redesign the blueprint with your new belief, right? Love only happens when you're not looking for it. Not completely true. And it's not always true. I think it's important to know that love is available to you if you want a relationship, the more you let it be known, the more intentional you are with putting it out there, the more likely you are of seeing that possibility to fruition. Greatly, ladies and gentlemen, yes, it is it is definitely something to consider that, relationships are a space of vulnerability, and even connecting with new people is a space of vulnerability. We are humans that are just interested in knowing if we're going to be safe or not with somebody else, and we want to know if we can trust them or not, and we want to be able to spaces that feel safe, right? So it is a bold move. It is a bold move, but consider what would be the other options. Disconnection of not having a partner by your side in times when times get hard, because times do come where they are hard. We need people. We thrive through relationships. It's not a matter of if it's, if it's a want only. It's a matter of we do need people. We do need to have those fulfilling relationships and know that we have somebody that has our back. So dare greatly in it and know that I think to consider, I put Daring Greatly because of Brene Brown's book, because I did a book club recently with on that book, and it was just amazing, the experience, and really just uncovering vulnerability and the aspects of shame that impact us. Something to consider, looking into perhaps that book and seeing how that serves you in creating that, because there are things that, again, our blueprint is at times outlined with things, with patterns based on our upbringings, based on information from outside of ourselves. And shame comes up a lot of times with some of the reasons why we don't do certain things, or some of the reasons we do certain things. So dare greatly, go out there, be courageous. This is a bold move, and it is a move that serves you, because again, we thrive in relationships and quality relationships. And these quality relationships are built on what I mentioned earlier, going back to that relationship house, understanding how you could trust others, understanding how you trust yourself, understanding what you want, what you value, your agreements with yourself. What agreements would you create with other people? How do you communicate your needs? How do you communicate with other people? How well do you even listen? Because listening is part of communication. You know, how well have you been serving, or have been giving in relationships? I didn't mention this, but emotional bank accounts. How well do you communicate when you're a bank account, your emotional bank account, and it's just, it's a fictitious bank account, right? How well it's being filled. How well are you filling up other people's emotional bank account when you're connecting with them? I mean, there's certain things, and sometimes it does take being bold and that courageous step of actions and deeper conversations and quality relationships, but it's worth it. It's a belief that I have, I hold true to at this point, because I know from my own experience, it's been worth it. Definitely worth it. Um, Step, we went through 8. This is the steps to creating an empowering thought. And we start off with 1, identifying the thoughts that you all may have, right? Like love and relationships are always painful. This is one belief that I had when I was starting out. Um, you might ask yourself a question. Where does this thought come from? That's step 2. Where does this thought come from? Is this coming from a place of fear? Is it coming from a place of service, of love, right? Is it coming from a place of protecting myself? Am I saying this to myself because I don't want to be honest? Because otherwise, that means I would have to be vulnerable. I'm afraid of that. Okay, ask yourself these questions. Where is this coming from? Is it coming from love or fear? In what way does this thought serve you? See, because many times we think these thoughts, and there's a reason for it, right? There's a story that we've created already, and we hold this thought because it helps us. We operate from that space of that thought, right? We start to show up based on that belief, and it fulfills certain. So, for example, I had a story where I was always going to be single forever, as I was going to be a single mom forever and ever. And so it was very easy to just hold on to this thought, because then I was going to secure that story that I had. And I realized that that story was just not a great story for me. Write my story, and I did. And that's what I would like for you guys. So in the next step is it absolutely and always true? When you think of this belief, and absolutely and always true. So let's think of love and relationships are always painful. Is it absolutely true that love and relationships are always painful? Hmm. I mean, when I ask myself that question, I think, no, it's not always true. And when I think this thought, who do you become? When you think the thought that you have in mind, who do you become? Think about it for a moment. If you close your eyes and you think the thought in your mind, what part of your body has a feeling that comes up, right? How do you feel? And what happens to you, to your physiology? Showing up in the world based on this belief that you have, you end up showing up based on those thoughts. Your physical aspect does change because of these beliefs. Not only does your physical aspect change, but your choices, your actions around it. So when you think the thought, who do you become? Think of that. What is true about love and relationships? So let's kind of flip it around. What really is the truth about it? And what do I do? Next page. So let's turn the statement around. Love and relationships are always painful. If we were to turn around, love and relationships aren't always painful. What is the truth about love and relationships? right? Love and relationships are a place of growing. It's a place of connectedness. It's a place of feeling secure. These are some truths to it. They can be a place of feeling those things once we establish agreements with ourselves around it, right? Let's say looking for partners that are secure, putting ourselves in those situations to communicate the need for security. So I can fulfill that truth, right? Love and relationships aren't always painful. They're a place of growth and and support and a sense of partnership. Think of examples, real life examples where they actually exist. What relationships have you seen out there that do show this truth that you've come up with? For it, it's out there. Imagine when you bought a car for the first time and you thought, girl, you or man, you thought you were special, right? This car was the it car. You were telling all your friends about this new car, and all of a sudden you're seeing this car everywhere in the same color that you purchased it. You're like, what's going on? All of a sudden I buy this car and everybody has it. No, it's not that. It's that your focus was completely not on the car before. Now it is. So imagine if you started to focus on looking for this new truth that you've created. Go out there and look for it in real life. Get out of your head for a second and just start seeing the possibility through real life examples. And maybe even go out there and create the possibility of validating this new truth. And what I mean by that is really testing this truth out. Go out there. Let's say if your truth is that. I had a truth once that I couldn't be, you can't be friends with males. Not true. That is not true. It could be true based on certain agreements I had to create in this type of space in order for that to take place. And so when I put it out there that it's possible to have really great friendships, and I started to create that same thing because that's exactly what I was looking for out there. Now I was looking for something to validate against that truth, and it wasn't possible. 5, create a new belief and love statement. Make this, get creative with this, right? Now that you've created a new truth, make this your mantra if you want. Create an incantation. Do something to help you remember this new truth that you've created. All right. Because we need to break this blueprint, this old blueprint that no longer is serving you based on truths that exist, real life examples that exist. And who do you need to be in order to make this statement real? This is a really good question because when you consider it, sometimes like I said before, who do you become when you think the thought? Well, who do you need to be in order to make this real? We're still operating from that old automatic autopilot blueprint that isn't serving us in our life circumstance. If we wanted to change, we should consider shifting some of the blueprint that what we're operating from. So consider all the different 8 keys that I mentioned as you create this last part right here. This what do you need to create, or who do you need to be basically in order to make this statement a reality? Story either empowers you or disempowers you and is the glue that determines if you succeed or not. And Marry the Truth by Devin Bandison. That's my coach, by the way. My former coach. So that is the end of this presentation. And with a lot of love, I really have put this together for you guys. And again, it was so much information. I really had to condense it. I wanted to give you guys something else that you can look forward to. We have some upcoming events. I do have a local meetup that's meeting at the Pinecrest Library it's every third Tuesday. I put second, but it's every third Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:45 a.m. It's for conversation and meditation to embrace love after heartbreak. Free event. I also have a Healing Hearts Love Camp. This is an online community with a weekly call where you can learn strategies, just like the ones I mentioned today, but more expanded, to have more fulfillment. We experience a live group coaching call, right? So one person in the group will be selected to have a coaching session, and everybody gets to learn from that experience. Connect with other people and learn from them. Definitely. Hey, it might be a place where, again, starting from the beginning, right? Just connecting with new people. You never know where that may lead. So, and that's actually going to be, it was set at $75 a month, but I've reduced it right now as an intro for $47 a month. And that is a limited time offer. So it's $47 a month for each month. And then the next thing would be Healing Hearts Love Camp, right? This weekly online call that will take place along with monthly one-on-one coaching. And this monthly one-on-one coaching is personal coaching. It's intentional living and creating a loving plan for yourself. It's gaining strategic approaches to making empowering decisions. It's getting a mindful check-in, slowing things down and honoring time to yourself, and reducing some of the anxieties that come up with changing your blueprint. It's all about creating the possibility of having more fulfillment. And we could define that in our own conversation as a one-on-one. Now, it's $575 a month right now. This is also a temporary price that I've provided. It's a weekly call, so this is actually a really good deal. It's a weekly call for 1 hour, just about an hour. And again, you still are part of Love Camp, where you connect with other people, but you